One of the projects in this course is the environmental controversy paper and presentation. Now this video is going to cover mostly just the paper portion, and there's a second video that covers the presentation. Don't really worry about the presentation until you finish your paper, because your presentation really is just a visual guide of your paper, and so it's going to be really easy to do because you're going to be an expert on your topic by the time you finish it. Now I'm going to go through the instructions as well as where things are in Blackboard, but just as a note, this video is being used over multiple semesters, so things might look slightly different than your course during your semester. The biggest thing though is just make sure you're reading through the instructions on your own as well, just to make sure that you are aware of the newest rules, the newest deadlines, the newest points, etc. for this assignment. So in Blackboard, I'm going to go to the Projects and Extra Credit folder within our Blackboard course, and then one of the subfolders is the Environmental Controversy project folder. Now within this project folder, you've already found it because you found this video, but we have the instructions for the project. There's more information about the paper, which is this YouTube video, as well as the APA guide. And I am going to emphasize this APA guide. It has its own video and its own worksheet. And it's essentially telling you how to use APA, which is what we use in this course and what scientists in general use. This not only tells you how to cite things, but it also tells you how to find things like good sources and how to do things like paraphrasing, which is really, really important because we don't really use direct quotes in science. So that's all I'm going to say about it, but know it's there. And then also when you get to the presentation portion, there's a video again that explains the presentation as well as some example presentations. And then this is followed by the deadlines for this project. And it looks like a lot, but the point is my goal is to kind of break up the project into pieces. So it's not just one deadline and it's your paper. It's a couple smaller deadlines to make sure that you're working on your paper and on the right track. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the instructions, which are linked here, but I'm going to go ahead and open them up here. First thing is the deadlines. This should match Blackboard. And so the point of this paper is essentially choosing a topic, and I'll talk about that more in a moment, and discussing both sides of it. Maybe it's the pros and the cons, maybe it's this group of people versus that group of people, but it's some topic that has had some sort of controversy around it. Now, controversy usually has like this big idea, like there's been protests and stuff. Some of the topics there have been, but a lot of the topics, it's not like controversial, like solar panels. There's not a huge group of people that are saying, no, solar panels are bad, we must get rid of them. But there are pros and cons to them that is preventing their widespread adoption in the United States. So although yes, this is called environmental controversy, not everything is really controversial, but all the topics are at least having two sides, if not more sides, to the issue. So the way you're going to choose your project is I've actually given you a nice helping hand here. So the first assignment here is just the quiz that covers the instructions, and then here we have this topic selection. So I clicked on the link and it takes me to a Wikipedia page just within Blackboard. And here I have a ton of different topics that you can choose from, and you just write in your name in here. The instructions on how to do that are within Blackboard. Or if you're looking at these, you're like, none of these really speak to me, I want to do something else, just email me. Let me know that you're interested in doing something and I'll let you know if it's approved or not. But if you're like, I don't want to think that much, got a whole list here for you to choose from. So just know that that's part of this project is just choosing your topic in the first place. Now it is a sign up, so it is first come, first serve, and this is mainly because I don't want 10 presentations about electric vehicles. This is a way to kind of ensure everyone is doing something unique so that I don't get tired of watching presentations and y'all don't get tired of watching presentations. The next deadline is the paper source evaluations. So there is a worksheet that I'll show you in just a moment on Blackboard where I want you to find at least 2 sources that you will evaluate. And what I mean by that is evaluate, are they a good source? This is the age of misinformation, and it's really easy to get not great information Unfortunately, it's easier to get bad information than it is to get good information. So half the battle of this paper is honestly finding good sources. This worksheet asks you questions that kind of help you determine, is it a good or bad source? It asks you things like, who are the authors? What is the purpose of them writing about this? When was this written? What kind of website is it published on? Things like that. Now, in addition to completing these worksheets, you also need to make sure you're using approved sources. So this is listed here. If you get it from a website that ends in .gov, you don't need to ask for my approval. It's approved. If you get it from a peer-reviewed scientific journal article, automatically approved. And that APA guide will actually tell you how to find those. If you're like, oh, I found something on ilovewhales.com and I think it's pretty good, just send me an email and I'll let you know if your article is approved. And then you've got your 2 sources. You're going to fill out 2 worksheets and just submit those to get my feedback. Now, you are submitting 2 of these worksheets. One worksheet is for a source on one side of the issue, and the other worksheet is for a source on the other side of the issue. Or, depending on the research you found, maybe your sources both have like pros and cons in them. That's fine. Essentially, what I don't want to see is like, oh, I've got 2 sources for the bad side and no sources for the good side. So what I'm looking for is diversity. Now, in your paper, you might use 3, 4, 5, 6 sources. Totally fine. For this, I just want 2, one from either side, just to give you, again, that head start. Your next deadline would be the rough draft. It is an optional deadline. I'm actually going to scroll down a little bit. It is an optional deadline and an optional assignment. It's just to write a rough draft of your paper. Now, there is a benefit to writing your rough draft because we will do peer review. So students who turned in a rough draft will peer review other students who turned in a rough draft, and you'll have a chance to read through their paper and give them feedback and give them edits and be like, hey, the professor said to include XYZ, you didn't. So you get that feedback from someone else, another set of eyes, and you earn extra credit for grading or giving feedback to another student. So submitting the rough draft itself doesn't earn points, but it allows you to do peer editing, which does earn extra credit. So just something to keep in mind. You don't have to do it. There's no penalty for not doing it. Now, that paper itself within Blackboard, it tells you the format, everything in APA, what needs to go into your paper, how it should be formatted. Just be sure to read all of this. These are going to be easy points for you if you can at least just follow the instructions for formatting. There's a rubric here that tells you even more in detail how you're getting points for this assignment. And then once you finish your paper, I'll grade it and give it back to you, and about a week or 2 later is the presentation. Again, in here, I'm not going to talk much about the presentation. There's a second video for that. Here in Blackboard, just want to show you again. So the first up is the quiz that overviews this. Here's where you choose your topic. Here's where you submit your paper source evaluations, and if you click this link, it opens up a Word document that has the information and the worksheets for evaluating your sources. Here's where your rough draft goes if you choose to do it. Here's where your peer review goes of rough drafts if you essentially submitted a rough draft in the first place. And then the last item being the final draft of your paper. So that's pretty much it. Be sure to read through the instructions of both the project as well as the APA guide. One, you're going to need them both for the quiz that overviews this information, but 2, it is really important information to writing a good paper and a paper that gets you an A on the assignment. The paper is worth 60 points. For related, a test is worth 70 points. So this is nearly worth a test. So you want to do pretty well on it. And it's really easy to do well if you just follow the instructions. So that's it. Stay tuned, keep working on that paper, and then come watch the second video about the presentation.